Hello, everyone. Hi, Thomas.
Johannes, good to see you.
Good to see you. Hello, Chance and Harris, who took your course last year
Yes, great to see you too.
on the philosophy of beauty and virtue in Plato. And this year, though, is Plato and Aristotle on health and virtue. So your course is called On Health and Virtue, A Journey to Wellness with Plato and Aristotle, which begins, by the way, on the 6th of September this year, and it's always going to be from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you uh, have put this together to, well, to remind us of, let's say, the ancient wisdom and habits of how to be healthy and to be well, and also how health can be an ontological concept as well. So this is going to be a very interesting course. I think it's going to help people form certain habits, but also not to to start over optimizing their health, which is another massive thing. Where you should go outside and take a walk every day, a brisk walk, as they used to say. But perhaps one shouldn't just do it to count the steps and have a sort of a gamification of one's while that can be helpful, let's say some quantification. If you only do it for the quantity, then you lose sight of what matters. So, Thomas, you now have taken on a new position also as assistant professor of graphic design. Tell us where that's new,
Yes,
and also what brings you to philosophy, and then we can start discussing your course.
yeah. Well, obviously, again, I'm very excited to be working with the Halcyon Guild on the new course on health. It was such a great experience working on beauty and virtue found in Plato. And again, we have students from that course hanging out on the live stream, and it was a really great experience working with them on developing thought related to beauty. And when you made a suggestion at the end of that first course to do now work on a lecture course on health, um, I think it was a very appropriate, very smart move because we find that I actually had discussions with some students about the tensions of appeal or attraction with beauty and working through what we mean by beauty. And health is actually one of the tools that we can help to better understand the relationship of what Aristotle and Plato were talking about in specifically the mind and body and how they relate to each other. So Johannes, you brought up a point about the kind of capture of the quantitative on the body. That this idea of like we got to do our 10,000 steps, but with a failure of realizing it's not just number go up. Like that's not the whole that is not the purpose of this. It's not number go up for the sake
Number
of
go up.
why.
No, that's the purpose
Number
of
go up.
everything. That's the I'm just tweeting this out. I hope I get engagement. I'm still not monetized on Twitter. I still don't know how to provoke people more to get monetized because number go up.
Exactly.
Computer
This
says no. Go on. Sorry.
there's no kilos. And that's the point. There's no orientation. And that word orientation diathesis is such an important element of actually we will talk about this related to Aristotle had a huge discussion on health. Now there's no direct text about it. You have to go gather this together from many of his texts, both from metaphysics to physics to Nicomachean ethics. You have to go across a very large cross section to get Aristotle's notion of health. But you find out, and also other areas like posterior analytic, for example, health plays just a critical role in so many aspects of Aristotle's account, let alone Plato. Plato had so many addressments about health in terms of it's all actually in many of the dialogues. Health is used as one of the images or kind of the kind of notions of diagramming that work out what these other topics would be of courage or of beauty or of justice. Health was always carried along as almost a presupposition to know anything in Plato or Aristotle. One really has to know health, and it's and not surprising that we forgot the ancients, and I think this kind of number go up mentality of the steps not realizing it's for the sake of health that we do these steps, not for number go up. That's a very nice, it was just a very convenient little image about the showing the gap of our remembrance or lack thereof. And we come to find out from actually working through the texts of Plato and Aristotle that this idea of our health is just of the body is not sufficient, because the mind also has to work with the health as well. And we come to see that specifically the moral virtues of temperance and courage, especially, which was touched about in the beauty course, especially temperance. But in health, we see that courage, the other moral virtue,
Yeah.
um, reveals itself as a very important element of consideration, and it tends to do related to memory.
How to memory?
Well, this idea of recollection and remembering
Yeah.
to think about and hold what matters. That health is not just this thing of just blind marching of numbers that we just kind of carry along by counting, and then that's how we get health. There's
Yeah.
a kind of things that are worth remembering and worth valuing, and especially in relation to pleasure and pain, because that's kind of generally the response of health has been to just add more. If we can quantify things and do interventions, we'll be healthy by doing that.
Yeah.
And that is a not to say those isn't value in that kind of account, but there's another window of possibility considered in health when we look at Plato and Aristotle. And memory and relationship to the virtues have a very important aspect, the role to play in that.
What would you say then to someone who comes to the course and joins you for the live seminars that begin on the 6th of September, by the way?
Yes.
And run for, so you'll give 4 live seminars, 2 hours each, plus a 5th seminar after a week break, where people can present their own work at the symposium or the pro seminar, whatever we like to call it. And I would reckon that people will probably change some of their habits through this course, and you can maybe go into this also. But what would you say to someone who comes to your course almost as an agent provocateur or the devil's advocate who says, I need to quantify everything I do, or else I can't understand what I'm doing. I have no idea whether I'm actually any fitter or any better or any healthier if I don't see the results immediately on my health app on my phone or similar.
Well, there are two parts of that. One is just kind of go through the course, and I think what I love about teaching at Halcyon is there's basically there's recorded lectures, right, with readings attached to it. Then in the live session, I usually talk for about 20 minutes, kind of summarizing the key concepts, and then there are questions or discussion points that everyone in the room works with. So this is live thought. It is not as a passive consumption of just here's the text, and then I'm going to tell you what to think about it. It's working through with the group, thinking through, talking with each other, discoursing with each other, and I'm working with you all to uncover insights and understanding. And that'd be one example. So if an individual came in with this kind of, I need this, the only thing is real is the physical that I can measure with a number. That's what's real. But that very point is why health is analogical, because even the very fact we say the health of the eye, the health of your lungs, the health of your body, these are different organs with different things made up of it, with different functions and different activities and things that can displace it and cause hindrance of the activity. They're all different, yet we have this concept, we can apprehend this understanding of health relates to all of this. And numbers play a role to quantify because health is in place, and place can be quantified. That is true, but it's not the conclusion of the discussion. It is simply the beginning. And it's very true with any kind of, and also because my design background, the idea of quantification only is the beginning of the investigation. It is not the end of it, because the relationships, either of confounding relationships or multiple, or the kind of revealing quality of an emergent property, is things that are not to simply quantify at the simplest level. They are the relationships and interactions of things reveal new possibilities. Um, that is why, as we any complicated system, there's multiple systems in play with each other. And just because the focus on one measure of a number might misapprehend all these other aspects to lead to your whole health. A good example is someone who gets on a very extreme, again, not a doctor, but uh, a high protein, high fat diet, but not realize the relationship of that consumption of food with other activities in terms of being healthy. You can't just look at the one thing. Health requires a more holistic approach of relationships that the quantification can help you apprehend and understand, but it's
Yeah.
not the end of the conversation, it's the beginning. And I think that the most important element about why this is interesting to me is that in design, we do consider the health of spaces, the health of interactions, the health of interfaces, in the sense of this notion of health and the organic is not necessarily the biological by itself. It's the well functioning activity of artifacts and interfaces and interactions in spaces. That's why we can use this term health in this analogical way, because
Mhm.
it's not just any quantification of a number, it's the relationships of things numbers reveal.
That's very good. Thank you. I mean, so if we only looked at numbers, let's say calorie counting,
Yeah.
then one could perhaps say, what's I'm this tall and I have that weight and I need about 2,200, 2,500 calories a day. So you just go to McDonald's and you get all the calories from McDonald's,
Yeah.
and you
And
make
there's
sure
examples of,
sorry.
not to interrupt, but there's famously examples of this where people say, I can lose weight by just eating McDonald's. And if they say, because it's just calories,
Yeah.
calorie in, calorie out, and I'm healthy.
Yeah, but there's also, if you think this further, if you just always could keep dropping calories and you assume that you keep losing fat or body weight overall, then at some point by that logic you would have to disappear. Which is why you can, by controlling calories, you can do certain things, trying to get fit, but at some point you just hit a brick wall.
Yes.
And then that's when you need to start knowing what it is that you're eating, and also what then, as you said, it's analogical. If people are not hearing this, it's beautiful. It's all in relationship to everything else. You need to know that. So Hegel's example would be to say that if you cut the liver out of the body, it's no longer a liver. If you cut the hand off the body, it's no longer a hand. It's only a hand if it's part of your arm, etc. So there can't be a brain in a vet, by the way. And what actually I really like to see is you in conversation with Brian Johnson, I think is his name.
Yes.
And I saw, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, I saw a very funny meme of him, because he looks, he's in what is considered, I guess, in some parts of the world, a healthy looking male body, even though he looks he looks a bit pale. He did have hair transplants. I haven't had that done yet, but I can see maybe some reason at some point. But I'm younger than him, but we'll see. But so he takes lots of pills, as in he's got a very strict regimen every day that he goes through, what pills he takes, when he gets up, when he goes to sleep. It's all controlled. His blood gets tested, I think, if maybe even several times a day. And he runs different protocols, but also things that are sometimes really dangerous. And of course, given that he's a good American, he makes sure to grift off it as well. So he does sell his snake oil to everyone else, um, who can afford $1,000 a month for supplements. And so the meme I saw was him with all the stuff, trying to extend the years that he lives, because he wants to live forever, not as a human being, because he believes that AI will take over what it means to be human. So all we
Yeah.
are left with, because AI will take over, that it'll be more intelligent than us. So all we have left is what? Is to live forever, like not a vegetable, but to be physically alive for 500 years. That's what I've understood. Here's the funny meme I saw. So you see him with his pale skin, and then and all the pills that he takes and all the machines that he requires to get up in the morning. And to the right of him is an Italian man, 90 years old, smoking a cigarette, drinking 5 espressos every morning, and drinking wine and eating pasta. And he got to live to an old age as well. Many frego, 0 F's given. So that's maybe another. So who's healthier? I would say the Italian gentleman is healthier because he's actually lived.
Well, the thing is this Brian individual, the Brian Johnson story is is example of number go up. I need my number. The virtue, the goodness is my number goes up. My number is bigger than everyone else's number.
Yeah, right? He always says this. I'm the healthiest man alive. I have the longest erection every night. No, he says this. He says this.
This is absurd because there's an idea of the eudaimonic life, the eudaimonia. That's what the purpose of health is for. Like health is a good in and of itself towards the eudaimonic life. And yes, because even that example for the McDonald's dieting that way, the only really answer that question of really what health is what kind of life do you want to live in terms of certain. Health gives you a kind of freedom when you're healthy because you can do things. So that's why it only makes sense as a means to an end to live a certain way of living. And for those who exactly like spending your consciousness to quantify all these aspects to regiments to just extend your life extension. But if you're not doing the life of Scholé or a life that's well lived, this really to what end? It's just number go up. It's the same madness as everything else, where we just make numbers go up and we think that makes things better.
Yeah, there's you keep mentioning the word end. The Aristotelian, of course, hears the word telos in it, which we can think of also as purpose. So there must be a limit to what we do, which gives it purpose. What we do, the art of living. So we can already hear that the course really will also address the question of the art of living. Now, here's a question from Harris. By the way, to people who are just joining, if you have a question for Thomas on this course, Aristotle, Plato on health and well-being. Well-being is perhaps a better word than just health. Just ask the question in the chat. We'll get to them in the end, but I think this one we can get to now. And just as a reminder, there's a link in the description of this video that takes you to the enrollment page. We'll go over that process in a bit, and how you can enroll and take Thomas's course. So here's Harris. Johannes, don't know who that is, recently mentioned that arete signifies unification. So arete usually is translated as virtue, which is fair enough, but you can also think of it as unification. And how would Thomas's course on health help participants achieve the sense of unity within themselves?
It's an excellent question. And yes, let's see. Let's start at the beginning of this. So my note before my opening statement, kind of when I talked to Johannes this afternoon, was this idea of one is the channeling and harmonization of the moral virtues, so of courage and temperance. That's so one, it gets because those relate to desire and the passions and the motions and movements of the soul related to pleasure and pain. And it goes on both directions in terms of unification is actually this relates to things like weakness of will, for example. And this is so this kind of memory, when I talk about this memory aspect, I'm kind of emphasizing, kind of leading on this, is because in the sensations and experiences of life, one has virtue with unity by the well ordering, by having courage and temperance. Basically, what that means is that when you're temperate, you're not running away in the sense of being run away by pleasures. So in this case, very concretely, is that you don't eat the bag of chips, potato chips, just because they taste good, right? And then the case of courage is the willingness to, and this is very important, this is actually why it's very from Aristotle, the point about why not all virtues are pleasurable. Like they're not always going to be that case. And courage is that example, where there are cases where one must endure or present themselves in a situation of displeasure, for the sake of a good that is deemed worthy to encounter. So at and that's the point, is that because this is in your power, in a sense of that choice, that remembrance of it's early in the morning and you made the choice to go for that walk. Even just a simple thing of going for a daily walk before you go to work, for example, that
Yep.
is, and you're tired and you don't, or it's raining outside, for example, and it's displeasurable to have to go do a walk in the rain, as an example. Um, those are examples of the practices that unify and self affirm oneself in unity of virtue. It's a small step along the way. And this is something that's in your power. Hell is a very complicated concept because there's actually the idea of the polis and the state and the
Yep.
community's relationship and the environment on health. But there's the other side of it too, of the individual and the things that are in our power and choice to give us a sense of unity that arte, that virtue presents to us and reveals.
Yeah, excellent. I think so. I usually lean more towards Aristotle in many respects. And here also again, I think especially in the Nicomachean Ethics, you can see him say very often that in matters of health and ethics, what we might translate as abstract universal principles or statements, they're interesting, but they're not end all be all. There are, it's almost it's case by case. So that you can't give general principles about health that work for everyone, because it's ultimately, I mean, because the not because they can't be true. For example, eat an apple a day. That's not the worst thing. Or take a walk every day. Make sure you get up every hour, etc. That's all fine. But for Aristotle, the question is, how do these logoi translate into action? That's the crucial question. Because one thing that you could also have, you could envision a future not too distant from us. And I remind everyone again, you are watching this on YouTube and other platforms, where what I've seen people do is, you get your smartwatch out and then you do this. Or you make it pretend you do steps to get the
No
steps in, or no. I mean, yeah, why not? Or you type in, you've got your app where you perfectly track your calorie intake, but then that chocolate bar every night and that bag of chips that you mentioned, that those you just don't type in, because so you perfectly hit your calorie goal every day, but it's not actually done. So it's just, you've simulated for yourself a situation in which you're following all the principles, but you're not enacting them really.
No, that's
And
huge. And actually, one of my favorite things about, so as you know, Johannes, my background was in Aristotelian, right, research and reading. That was my background, and that's one of my favorite parts about Aristotle, is this area of the application. It is it's not good enough just to have the prudence, requires the connection of the universal principles, the logi, with the particular application. It's essential. It's not an optional thing. And in health, this is also, I mean, for me, why beauty is such an important element. Beauty is a similar aspect where beauty demands the particular thisness of this moment in this situation. And you cannot run away to just an abstraction. And that's what beauty, just like beauty gives us that quality, health is another aspect of this, that it's not simply good enough to give a universal general statement. There is a question of particularity and of responsiveness to the particular constraints and limitations. And as I talk about, I explain these from physics related to hypothetic and material necessity, and how in health we see the relationship of the two, especially with the concept of development and kontos, of the kind of interplay of development of the substance of the organ, of the organism and the organs that make up that organism.
great. So let's do this. I'll just go, and you can add anything you want at any time, Thomas. So if you head over to this website now, which is in the chat and also in the link, also in the description of this video, if you're watching this later. If you have any questions for Thomas on this course, let us know now, so we'll get to them in the end. So we'll begin. If you want to take the seminars with Thomas, Those will be from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 to 9 p.m. Central European Time. So if you're in the UK, that's 6 to 8 p.m. UK time. And so we'll just describe the course here. You see the curriculum. Now you could take either private sessions with Thomas or take the, so those will be 4 private sessions with him, 5 group seminars, your own work. It could be an essay or something that you've learned. So you could write a very formal essay on the philosophy of health if you so desire, or you could describe how you over the course of the course. You must change your life, as Rilke said. Or you take the course in the self-study mode. Don't come to the seminars because maybe you can't make at least 2 or 3 of them, but you still would like to gain access to the video and audio materials, the guided reading, etc., and also learn how to improve your life. There's also payment plans just beneath, so you can check those out and let us know if you have any questions on this now. Enrollment is now open. As I said, we have September, so there's a bit of time, but everything has been uploaded. So if you enroll today, you can start reading. So all the sections that you're supposed to read in, for example, Plato's Republic or Aristotle's Physics are already listed. Thomas's lectures have been uploaded. I'll show you what that looks like on the inside in a second as well. Actually, might just do that now. So that looks.
And while you're doing that,
yes,
I would just share that one of my favorite things I need to emphasize, especially if you come to the seminars, that opportunity to write something, the process of readings and discourse, and then writing and sharing your writing. I cannot tell you how important that is, because the cultivation of your thought is what this is all about. Both your thought and then in this case, in health especially, how this applies to your life, particularly for yourself. I say that because I've taught in many schools and I've been in enough seminars to see that a lot of times there's this kind of consumption, right? This kind of this consumption of tidbits and content and all these other things that does not it needs to be processed, worked through, and developed in your thought. And writing and talking about your writing is a very important element about that. That's actually one of the reasons why I really appreciate working at Halcyon as a fellow and holding workshops, working these courses together.
Thank you. Let's replace the screen. So look, this is him. Here he is.
Well, wait a minute.
Welcome back. So
in the woods. Sorry.
Wait, Johannes, that's up? It's just me on the screen right now.
Oh, like okay. That didn't work.
The live stream edition.
Yeah. There he is. So that's what the lectures look like. This is an actual forest. It's not a green screen, is it?
No, I recorded and I was still living in Georgia. Actually, so in Mount St. Mary University, it's an hour from Baltimore. It's very similar nature. I'm surrounded by nature like this, and that's a very important element of a place, like of health and a place and things like the necessity of nature to give us a sense of balance and a kind of harmony. It's a very important quality. So it's just it's way more enjoyable to see than like a typical office.
So you see here that we have the video, then there's a PDF which you can download and print off. There's the audio file and the required or suggested readings and a couple of questions by Thomas. And yeah, so that's all here. That's what this looks like. Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add at the moment, Thomas?
No, I just think, again, we try to make this course as accessible as possible with lots of modalities. So yeah, download those the MP3 files and go for your walks. Again, I think a very big element here is we want the activity of the body to be very much considered as we talk about this. So Because it's one thing to talk about what you're supposed to do, and there's lots of resources online to tell you how to be healthy as a general point. But the whole purpose of this course is the idea of we have to enact this. We have to
Yeah.
encounter. It's not good enough just to say it's a good idea. As Aristotle says, this is like a person of studying virtue who understand and listen to their physician and shakes their head in agreement, but then does none of the prescription. I remember that from Nicky Maki Nothings. That line from
Yeah.
Aristotle. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that's the danger. So we're not going to intellectualize health or well-being here. You are called to action, and I think that can work whether you're doing this on your own or whether you're doing this in the group, if you take the challenge seriously. So I wanted to point out again that if you want to take additional private dialogues, tutorials with Professor Thomas Chokin, then that's possible as well. So there'll be 4 private sessions. That's the first tier you see here, but there are only 4 spots available.
Heads up, Johan, just letting you know you're not sharing the screen. Just letting you know.
Yeah. Well, I can share that again if you want. Sorry. Right here. So this would be the philosophical dialogues. These are here. There's 4 available. That gives you access to the seminars, 4 private sessions, and of course the lectures. Now, usually this one here is most popular, the philosophical fellowship, as we call it, the seminars, 5 group seminars. At the final seminar, which is the symposium, you get to present. And there are 4 video and audio lectures and handouts, etc. already all uploaded, so you can start straight away if you enroll today. And if you don't have time for the seminars, I always say, given that it's 5, if you don't have time for at least 2, 2.5, 3, then you take the self-study tier. And so that's it from me. If you want to add anything, Thomas, let us know. There's a couple of questions. If you have questions, let us know in the chat now before we disappear.
Yeah, the last note, just by the way, side note, besides doing design and being a professor and whatnot, and having a love for Aristotle and Plato and philosophy, also, I used to be an amateur boxer. So I make notes. I make notes in the essay series in my lecture notes about basically how boxing aligned with and connected with the training of the body for the sake of virtue. Especially the courage side and the temperance side. I mean, that's the most obvious, kind of clarity. And I give examples like the connection to that practice as I worked as an amateur boxer. I should send the photos for our next live stream of when I was a boxer. Like, I have photos of me back when I was fighting. But it's important though, because it's this idea of this vivified enactment of reality. It's not just talking through things. It's like you actually the channeling of the body to cultivate into a form, into an art, in the response to constraint of the threat of the contest, right? We talk about and we find out in the idea of courage, especially the necessity of the contest of the album to express and talk through and reveal what courage is a very important element that we'll be discussing. And in my eyes, in my boxing background, I would confirm all those points are very intuitively correct.
Yeah, I think in the future universities at some point I have to build. It'll be compulsory to do some sort of body engagement sport, such as boxing, and definitely also some weightlifting, etc. I had a conversation with Ian Morrison a few months ago, and he mentioned that the kids now, because he's a bit older than me, not that much, but just a bit, are now taking to weightlifting, and I can understand that because it gives you some resistance in the digital world that has no resistance, where any resistance that you're met with, you want to push away. You swipe left and right and all these things. The worst thing that can happen to you is a downvote, and even those are hidden now because we're also softy.
Well, can I say something
Snowflakey.
about
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
Just building on this, because
yeah,
I think it was in my I believe I talked, if not in my lecture notes and in a discussion in the beauty section, bodybuilding is the example there of versus gymnastics training. Like that's a big point. If you notice, bodybuilding is an obsession of the image. It's obsession of like I look good. That's the
yeah.
function of the of weightlifting. That's very different from gymnastical training or even the weight training that boxers have to do. Like we do this for the sake of a function of activity, of a certain way of being. And one of those notes is the idea you just said, having a responsiveness, a a reminder of the external reality that is not just of subjective preferences. Just as a note,
Yeah,
just draw.
that's very important again that you make this distinction, because there's another trend that I recently read about with young men, apparently even, what I would consider boys who are 14, 15, 16 years old, who now take steroids at
Yes.
this young age, because it's only about generating, producing an image, or mimetically reproducing an image, I should rather say, that lives up to. And you now actually do see some people who look so ridiculously checked up. I wonder how their heart can actually cope.
And they don't. I mean,
Give me
that's
the.
like a very
No,
there's
they don't know.
there's a long trend of a lot of bodybuilders dying at 40 who aggressively use a lot of TRN, right? Steroids, things like that. Yeah, basically they broke their bodies by they broke their body by trying to exceed it.
Yeah, but the difference between, I think, the old bodybuilders, the older generation, would be that they start using this for the competition,
Yes.
and now you see them at the Lido.
Of course.
You just in their everyday life, people look like Schwarzenegger during a film, or during a competition, and if you so that is
But see, if
again,
we don't have a
yeah,
conception of a telos, the purpose of what it means to be human, if we don't have a comprehension about it, you can't. How can we not end up in this scenario? Especially when, oh, if I do this, I number go up. It's a
yeah,
circle back to the original point of like I get likes, I get attention, I get all fame, I get
yeah.
all these points. It's just a lot. It's an inevitable conclusion.
Yeah, but it's also mimetic desire, no? If to use the Girardian term, which of course, we should not forget that the initial investor in Facebook is a Girardian, so he used or abused this concept of mimetic desire to
Yes.
to. So one has to be extremely careful. I would recommend anyone who's listening, who's quote unquote doing philosophy, who's philosophizing, reads a lot, you should work out, in but not to produce what is supposed to be quote unquote a healthy body, to reproduce an image, but along the lines of what Thomas is outlining in his course, that there needs to be an actual function. We need to have an understanding of what the human being is. That all comes in with that as well, and what the telos is of it. Yeah. So here's a question that I don't fully understand from Chance. There seems to be a tendency to become lost in ideas, I would guess notions, such that health in the body and the home are neglected. Will this cause address this pitfall of bypassing? Do you understand the question?
Yeah, it kind of. I think that correlated. I think we talked about this a little bit with this idea of just abstractional health. So
Oh,
this
right. Yeah.
idea of you could just talk about as an
Okay. Yeah.
abstraction and not grounded in the body. So I'm trying to parse through what the chance is saying here, but I believe, but we did address that, the whole point of prudent. Actually, that's the moral virtues of temperance and courage connect through into prudence and of
Oh, that's what.
necessity.
Yeah. Oh, that's what he means by bypassing. Yes. Well,
Yeah.
but you could even bypass it, for example, by taking steroids, in a sense. That's a different way of bypassing. And Okay, but to be more provocative now, what about self-destruction? Shouldn't we all be smoking and drinking until we die? And I mean, maybe not you, but
Yeah.
um, but for different reasons. But why shouldn't why shouldn't I sit like Emil Choran in an apartment in Paris and half, I don't know if he smoked, but he certainly he would have been the type for it. Um, what about more self-destructive tendencies that the human being has, and that also can be extremely creative, etc. Can be a part. Or David Lynch, for example, who recently died, was a
Mhm.
smoker, as far as I know, a heavy smoker. Maybe he did enjoy wine. He probably died ultimately because of his, but then he died. People do
I mean,
die
it's
in
kind
the
of
end.
there's a couple of aspects to this. No, like one aspect is um, the only way we can possibly address this question is to ask the question: what is the purpose and telos of a person's lives? Like just to live a
Yeah,
long life in of itself does not make a good life necessarily. So that's kind of the first qualification. I also say that because what I mean by this, this is not a stance of neuroticism of just like we have to protect of kind of a safetyism,
yeah,
right? Where it's like, oh
yeah,
my God, we have to protect ourselves in bubble wrap from all possible vectors of harm. This will be a misunderstanding of what's going on here. I think partly because I think it's I think one aspect is the reality, and we have encounters with reality. And with that encounter, the question is how to respond to it. Meaning, like, for example, maladies of health will come to us, right? Beyond like cancer and heart disease and other things like that. They may happen now, they might just occur spontaneously, right? Um, and it's more that's a one aspect of relationship to our bodies and health is that aspect of it of what is the response to that challenge to that encounter, and then the other aspect is um, we should have a loose, not a complete dismissing of the body. It's totally
yeah,
useless or not relevant, but neither nor a kind of a safetyism of like, oh my God, bubble wrap us from all harm in all cases. It's intermediate virtue. We need our mid intermediateness. We need to harmonize with a mid intermediate in response to the telos and purpose of the activity we're aiming here. So what I mean by that is we look at the Brian Johnsons of the world who are quantifying and basically systematizing their entire existence just so number go up
yeah,
versus you're having some smoke, you're smoking and you're aware of the cost. There is a price to be paid for that. You're aware of it statistically. We do know that statistically, but nevertheless, that is a better life lived. Uh, if you can have that in philosophical discourse or have friendship, I think that's the thing too. It's like it's a very big difference between drinking and smoking bluntly. It's a very different experience when you're with good friends in philosophical discourse than doing it by yourself in a very isolated, lonely space. So even that even that transforms the significance of these apparently self-destructive behaviors. Um, so that's so thus even that language of self-destructive is dependent on, again, I kind of are we talking about kind of a safetyism, kind of bubble wrap in terms of we need to prevent all harm from affecting the body in any way whatsoever. And
yeah.
I don't think
That's
it's
very good.
necessarily valid.
Yeah, I can see you've thought about this long and deeply. Um, some of, I don't know who, if anyone will know, have heard of him, but there was a German chancellor called Helmut Schmidt who lived to the age of 96. He died in 2015, I think. He he started smoking when he was 14 or 15, and he probably died with a cigarette in his mouth. He smoked everywhere, including TV studios where it was forbidden to smoke. He smoked in the theater of Hamburg, was his hometown, which was also forbidden, but verboten, but not for him. So there was a special exception made for him anywhere he went because he was a chain. He smoked Marlboro menthol cigarettes all his life, or menthol cigarettes at least all his life. And his doctor apparently once said to him, "You die if you stop smoking." So he had to continue. And the Greeks were not, you know, Puritans, as you know. They were not strangers to orgies, and the symposia were festivities where you come together to hear music and read poetry, drink together, and philosophize together. And as you know, the for Aristotle, also they were called peripatetics because they used to take walks together. As
Yeah.
Nietzsche says, a good thought, don't trust a thought that doesn't come to you in walking, to paraphrase Nietzsche a little bit here. So anyone who's listening, join us, join Thomas's new course. As you can hear, he's thought about health long and deeply, and we're going to read, maybe mention some of the texts again that you're going to read by Plato and Aristotle. Some of the, you know, you don't
Yeah, it's a very
have to
large
mention
cross
these texts.
section. So there's some Republic. There is, I remember off the top of my head. I don't the Plato. Yeah, Republic. Lashes. We're going to do a little bit of there. We're going to pull from posterior analytic, which is very fun. Like they get the analytic. We're going to go to posterior analytic here to talk about health. I mean, it's fascinating from Aristotle where he brings it up to talk about any of his concepts, metaphysics and physics, and Nicomachean ethics. Just to cite a few of the texts that would be cited or a reading will be assigned to it.
Excellent. So if you're ready to join, which I'm sure you are, we're meeting 5 times in total, beginning September 6th and then 13th, 20th, and 27th. So all of September, every Saturday of September. That's the main seminars. If you'd like to join the live seminars, 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 to 9 p.m. Central European Time. If you're in the UK, that's 6 to 8 p.m. You'll find the link to enroll in the description of this live stream. You find the curriculum and everything. There are different study paths that you can take. For example, if you'd like to take, in addition to the lectures and seminars, the pre-recorded lectures, I should say, and the seminars that are live over Zoom with Thomas, if you'd like to take additional private sessions, then the first tier is for you. If you'd like to take, which is the most popular usually, the philosophical fellowship and the seminars, there's going to be 5 group seminars led by Thomas. And at the final seminar, the symposium, you present your own work. That could be anything from a more or less academic paper or essay on Plato or Aristotle on health, or a poem, or your habits that you got into, etc. Now, there's also, if you don't have time, I'd say at least 2 of the seminars, those will be recorded, by the way, I should say. So if you can't make it to any of the seminars, you're not going to miss out on that much. We're recording the seminars for the group so you can listen back to the seminar. Maybe if you have to leave early, an hour early or something, or maybe you can't make it to the first hour, you can make it to the second hour, that's fine. You'll still get to listen back to the recording afterwards. And of course, we'll upload this to Teachable as well. So that means you've got access to the recordings until they shut down Teachable, which we all know the internet is forever. So let's just say indefinite access rather than lifetime access, which I think it says here. So if you don't have time, though, or maybe you're in a different time zone, etc., then join us at the self-study tier, which is this one here. And improve your. So the way it works is you click on here and then you click enroll now, and then it takes you to the enrollment page that gives you different ways of sending the honorarium that we ask for. You can also find payment plans just below. So 3 payments for the private sessions, 3 payments for the seminars, or 3 for the self-study. Thomas, yeah.
Oh no, I agree.
Okay, okay, good. Well, so thank you again, Thomas. Thank you, by the way, also Harris for gifting 5 memberships here. I didn't see that before. No, member for 5 months. Thank you. That's what it is. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think Harris and Chance do want to join, so you get to see them again.
It's very exciting. I'm looking forward to working with them. They were great students.
So you told me last year. So I hear, I should say. That would be better. Seraphim, maybe you can join us as well. That would be wonderful. Seraphim was in my Aristotle course last year on the Nicomachean Ethics. And so if one question though that we get often is do you need any sort of do you need to have read everything by Plato and Aristotle to know to take the course?
No,
You
I
need
don't.
formal training in philosophy to take the course?
No, I don't think so. Especially if you join us for the seminar sessions that are live. I mean, that'd be a great space for you to ask any question. I mean, I try to talk through the lectures in a way that is self-explanatory, without too much requirement of background knowledge. But even if that, but for those anything you maybe get tripped up about or any kind of questions, that's exactly where that's the space to ask those questions, and I can definitely address those. And most likely, if you're thinking it, someone else is thinking it too. Like notoriously, these thinkers are not exactly the cleanest to know. That's not so explicit. So that's a great. This is why the live sessions are really important. So those are the kind of spaces where you can learn and grow.
John says, thank you, guys. This would be an excellent course. Well, I'm convinced of that also. By the way, last year, a participant of your course said the following. I'm really happy to be partaking in this course. This was on Plato on beauty and virtue. I've realized what an overwhelming abundance there is in Plato's dialogues and Aristotle's notes and Thomas's resourceful, Thomas, that would be you, Thomas, resourceful, in-depth. Let me just share this. Why am I not sharing it?
I would hope so. That lecture course was 2 years in the making.
Well, yes, but no, this is always in the making. It's always, we're finite beings, so
This is true.
no, but you did well. In-depth commentary only adds to that richness. I can already tell I'll return to these dialogues as well as the lectures and seminars more than twice or thrice in the future. The work Thomas has put in is clear in the lectures. You draw so many connections and only partly from the dialogues themselves, showing a path to how much more there is to them. And this is the most important sentence. This feels so much more than a university course on Plato. Or as another student once said, Halcyon seminars are everything the university should have been.
Yes. I was talking with you before we started recording. I made that same notion again. This is why I love teaching here. It's everything university program is supposed to be about, training the mind. This is what Halcyon is all about. That's why I'm so excited to come back and do another lecture series.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really good that you're back and we're doing this. I do want to, next time we speak, I want to go into I took notes of this. I think this is very important when you mentioned about memory. I do want to know more about this. So again, if people, now's the time to know. Look at this jolly fella here. Look at him,
full of energy,
full of life. Yes,
that's the American way. Yes.
I have a bit of an American in me too, I sometimes think.
Yes, that's why we get along so well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I do. I like America a lot. Goethe was very, very taken by America too. He said, "America, you have it better." So because you're not bowed down by ghosts of metaphysics, as he says almost explicitly in this manner. So people who are only joining us now on X and YouTube, Thomas has got a new course that is kicking off in about 3.5 weeks from now on the 6th of September. That's a Saturday. You're going to meet with Thomas 5 times on first the 4 Saturdays of September, and then the 11th of October for the symposium. Sessions are 2 hours long each, longer than at any university, because it's just seminar time. Usually it's a lecture and seminar. This is just seminar time. That means there'll be breakout sessions. That's group work basically. You can ask questions you can, you go over it. So it's always a mixture of going, being strict with the text and going over the text, but also then riffing on
Yeah.
other things and things that are going on in your own life, etc., and tying this to your experience, and all the while making sure that you are beginning, if to question your own habits, that that you blind out the next day. And for it's just to give a small example that we had discussed before, etc. So I think this is a very important course because it goes in a direction that I want to take Calculon in. I've been meaning to do this for quite some time. So I'm very happy that you do this, Thomas. That we start introducing questions like this, and hobbit habit formation. Well, why not hobbit formation too? Why not some hobbits? Habit formation. That's just me speaking in a foreign language. Okay, so that's it from me. Thank you all very much for listening. I look forward to. So I'll be joining one of the seminars. I won't have time at the symposium this time. I'll be joining one of the seminars just to listen in, and maybe partake in the discussion a bit and learn from you all. And Thomas, any final remarks? Any
I'm excited to teach the
thoughts?
course. I think it's going to be a great topic. It's going to be a lot of discussion because it's such applicable to our lives. I think the very fact that it's just like beauty is something we encounter and motivate, and we encounter and motivates us and inspires us in our daily lives. Health also has that capacity of having direct contact in our lives. So this is not just philosophizing for its own sake. It actually has real consequences in terms of how we can live our lives. So again, I really appreciate Johannes for the invitation to teach the course. For the students who sign up, thank you so much. I really think I appreciate that immensely. And I cannot wait to work with you all in September.
Excellent. That was wonderful. Thank you very much, Thomas. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'll see you all shortly. Good night.